If you've ever worked a night shift, you know how strange things can get after dark. But at Meridian Hospital in Houston, things go beyond strange. It started with a list of rules, handwritten in black ink on wrinkled hospital stationery, taped to my locker door before my first solo night shift. I didn't see who put it there. The edges were stained, as though someone had cried or bled while holding it. I remember thinking it was a prank. Nurses play jokes on rookies all the time. But now, I'd give anything to go back and not laugh at that list. It read, 1. If you hear humming from room 943, do not enter. Lock the door from the outside. Walk away. 2. Never respond to code black between 3 a.m. and 3:33 a.m., no matter how urgent it sounds. 3. If an elderly man in a tattered blue gown asks you the date, lie. Tell him it's January 1st, 2000. 4. Never, ever go near the vending machines between 2:15 a.m. and 2:45 a.m. They are not for you. 5. Dr. Hadley hasn't worked here in 27 years. If you see him, leave the floor immediately. At the bottom, scrawled in red ink, follow the rules, or you'll never clock out. Meridian Hospital was old. Not charmingly old. Not historic. Just tired. The walls were the color of dried bone. The floors squeaked even when no one walked on them. And the fluorescent lights flickered like they were stuttering from trauma. It was a 12-story building, but oddly, only floors 1 through 9 were used. Floors 10 to 12 had been under renovation since 2004, apparently. I'd asked about it during orientation and was told to focus on your floor and be grateful. Charming. I was assigned to the 9th floor. Oncology and long-term care. Quiet patients, mostly. The kind of wing you either find peaceful or soul-sucking. I was trying to find the former. It was around 11:47 p.m. when I saw her. The first strange thing, she was standing at the end of the hallway, barefoot in a hospital gown. Her eyes were too wide, her arms hanging straight at her sides. I thought maybe she'd wandered from her room, so I approached with a gentle smile. Ma'am, you okay? Need help getting back to your room? She didn't move, just stared. I stopped walking. Her mouth opened slowly, unnaturally wide, and a single note of humming came out. High-pitched, off-key. My blood turned to ice. Room 943. That's where she had come from. I looked at the plaque on the nearest door. 941. 2 more doors down. I took a step back. She took 1 forward. I turned and ran. I didn't think. I just sprinted to the nurse's station, slammed the emergency override on the hallway door, and locked it behind me. The woman, or thing, stood on the other side, staring through the glass, her mouth still stretched wide. That humming. I can still hear it in my sleep. I checked the directory. Room 943 was marked unassigned. No patient. No records. I didn't unlock that hallway again until morning. At 2:20 a.m., I was by the vending machines trying to fight off the adrenaline and stay awake. I'd forgotten about rule number 4 until I heard it. Metal clinking from inside the machine, like coins being dropped in rapid succession. The screen read, out of order, but the buttons were glowing green. A bag of chips dropped, then another, then candy. One by one, the machines began dispensing snacks like they were vomiting them out. The lights above flickered and buzzed. I stepped back. Something pressed against the inside glass of the soda machine. A face. Not human. No lips. Just smooth skin stretched too tightly over his skull. Eyes like oil slicks. I turned and bolted again, knocking over an armful of candy as I ran. At 3:12 a.m., a code black came over the intercom. Code black. Room 918. Immediate assistance required. I froze. Rule number 2. The hallway lights dimmed, just a little, but I felt it, like the whole hospital side at once. I picked up the receiver to call security. The line was dead. The computers at the station rebooted themselves with a pop and a flicker. The time flashed. 3:12 a.m. The seconds didn't move. They just froze. I watched it for 5 minutes. Still 3:12 a.m. The voice came again. Code black. 918. Nurse Lucy, please respond. I hadn't told anyone my name. I yanked the plug on the intercom. I don't know why. Panic maybe. Desperation. The hallway down to 918 was pitch black. No emergency lights. No ambient hum. Just dark. And then footsteps. Coming up the hallway. Slow. Limping. Heavy. I hid under the counter. I don't remember deciding to. I was just there, crouched with my hands over my mouth, heart punching my ribs. The footsteps passed. There was dragging. Something wet slapped against tile. Then silence. Around 4:30 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I tried to find another nurse, but every floor below 9 was wrong. I took the elevator down to the 8th floor. The doors opened to blackness. Not darkness. Nothing. I saw no walls. No light. Just void. The elevator dinged again, and the doors closed on their own. I rode back up. When the doors opened, I was still on 9, but the hallways had changed. All the room numbers had been replaced with symbols, burned into the doors. No nurses. No lights. Just red exit signs that blinked like warning beacons. I walked, trying not to cry. That's when I saw Dr. Hadley. He was standing by the door to the stairwell, flipping through a chart. Middle-aged. Pale. Graying beard. His badge hung sideways like it had been pulled. When he looked up at me, his smile was too wide. "Shift going all right?" he asked. His voice echoed too much. There was no echo in that hallway. I backed up. I remembered rule number 5. Dr. Hadley hasn't worked here in 27 years. I blinked, and he was suddenly 5 feet closer. I hadn't even seen him move. He whispered, "You're not supposed to be here." I ran. I didn't clock out. I didn't even go back to my locker. I ran down 9 flights of stairs. Every time I passed a landing, I heard something behind the doors. Knocking. Screaming. Wet breathing. When I burst out the emergency exit onto the lot, it was dawn. But the sky was wrong. Too red. The sun was in the west, not the east. Birds flew backward. I felt my knees, vomiting from the vertigo. Then I heard a voice behind me. A nurse in white scrubs I'd never seen before. She was holding a clipboard, and smiling like this was all routine. "You made it out," she said gently. "Most don't." She handed me a new schedule. Next shift, tonight, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I said I quit. I screamed it. She only nodded. That's what they all say. I didn't go back the next night. I swore I wouldn't. I sent an email to HR at noon, telling them I was resigning effective immediately. I didn't even ask for my last paycheck. What good is money when you're dead or insane? I thought I'd never set foot near Meridian Hospital again. But when I woke up from a nap at 6:45 p.m., I was already there, lying on a stretcher in the break room of the 9th floor. For my arm, my uniform folded neatly on the chair next to me. The air reeked of antiseptic and burnt coffee. I bolted upright with a gasp. My name tag was clipped to my top. My shoes were lined up on the floor, laces tied. I don't remember how I got there. I don't remember leaving my apartment. There were no texts, no missed calls. My phone was gone. When I stood up, a clipboard was waiting on the counter. Nurse Lucy C., Shift start, 7 p.m. Location, Floor 9 Oncology/Long Term. Special instructions. Tonight, room 943 is locked. Do not unlock it, no matter what. A new list of rules was paperclipped beneath it. Updated rules, July 12th. 1. Do not fall asleep between 2 o'clock and 3 a.m. If you do, you won't wake up alone. 2. If you hear your own voice calling you from the stairwell, ignore it. It isn't you. 3. Avoid mirrors between 1 o'clock and 1:30 a.m. They see more than you do. 4. Patients in room 927 must be fed exactly at 11:11 p.m. Nothing more, nothing less. 5. Never speak the name Norah Greaves. Even thinking it too loudly can draw her attention. I crumpled the paper. This was insane. A nightmare. A hallucination brought on by overwork or trauma. But when I opened the door to the hallway, I was greeted with the same dry bone walls and flickering lights. The clock on the nurse's station blinked. 7:01 p.m. Somewhere down the hallway, the light in room 943 clicked on, then off. I tried the elevator. When I pressed the L for lobby, the buttons melted. Not figuratively. They sagged and bubbled like hot wax under my touch. The digital screen flashed. No exit. Shift in progress. I slammed my fists against the door until my hands ached. No one came. I sat at the nurse's station, shaking. A TV bolted to the corner of the ceiling buzzed on. Static at first, then an image, grainy and gray. It showed a feed of room 927. Inside were 3 patients, pale, frail, eyes locked open like they'd forgotten how to blink. The clock read 11:10 p.m. I jumped from the chair. I didn't even think. I grabbed the tray prepared for them from the dumbwaiter chute. 3 identical bowls of beige soup. Each was labeled low sodium, unseasoned, room temp. My hands trembled. When I entered room 927, all 3 patients turned their heads toward me in unison. Their lips didn't move. Their chests barely rose. I placed each bowl down and backed away. At 11:11 p.m. exactly, they opened their mouths. Not slowly, but like a reflex, like snakes unhinging their jaws, and began eating. No spoons, no chewing, just gulping. I heard cracking sounds as their jaws distended, a low gurgle of pleasure or pain, or both, filled the room. I closed the door and pressed my back to it, breathing hard. Something scratched from the inside. At 1:03 a.m., I passed by the staff bathroom and caught movement in the mirror, but I wasn't moving. My reflection stood perfectly still, lips curled into a sick smile I wasn't making. Her head tilted to the left, slowly, like she was examining me. Then her eyes bled. Not red, not dripping. They bled, like the whites of her eyes turned black and started leaking into her pupils, down her cheeks. I threw a towel over the mirror and bolted out. I heard her laugh behind the glass as I shut the door. Around 2:22 a.m., fatigue began setting in. That awful kind of night shift tired where your body goes cold and you start dreaming with your eyes open. I fought it, poured coffee down my throat, smacked myself in the face, did jumping jacks in the hallway. Nothing helped. Then I blinked and suddenly I was lying on a gurney again, in the middle of the hallway, alone. I sat up fast, dizzy and panicked. My ID badge was gone. The halls were dark. And then I heard it, my own voice. Lucy, it whispered from the stairwell door at the end of the corridor. Come quick. Something's wrong. I need help. It sounded just like me. Same pitch. Same panic. But it wasn't frantic. It was performative. Like someone pretending to be me. The stairwell door creaked, opened slowly. I saw fingers gripping the edge. I ran. At 2:59 a.m., I hid in the supply closet, heart beating out of sync with reality. I heard something breathing outside the door. Something tall. Heavy. It dragged a limb, or a tool. Something metallic scraping the floor with each step. I counted. Watched the second hand on my wristwatch tick past 3 a.m. The door handle turned. I shoved my foot against it, holding it tight. The thing on the other side giggled. A deep, unnatural sound that echoed in my bones. It whispered in 3 different voices, layered on top of each other. One male, one female. Not human. You're not asleep, little nurse. Good. Then it was gone. I must have passed out. When I woke up, my foot was still braced against the door, legs numb, pins and needles in my spine. I stumbled out, barely able to walk. A red light pulsed at the end of the hallway. Room 943. The door was open. No, I locked that room. The clipboard specifically said it had to remain locked. I approached slowly, each step feeling like I was dragging my soul behind me. Inside room 943 was a bed, empty. Bloodstains on the sheets. A wheelchair turned over in the corner. A medical chart taped to the wall, pages shredded. But something stood in the corner. It wasn't human. It wore a nurse's uniform, but the skin was too gray, too tight. No eyes, just hollow sockets leaking black ichor. Long arms, fingers like coat hangers. It turned toward me without moving its feet. I ran. I ran like my bones were on fire. I didn't look back. As I passed the nurse's station, alarms went off across the floor. Red flashing lights, sirens shrieking, speakers blaring static. Then one voice rose above it all. Code black. Room 943. Nurse Lucy, please report. I screamed and flung myself down the stairwell. I made it to the ground floor this time. The door didn't vanish. It wasn't void. It was just locked. A heavy, metal industrial deadbolt locked from the outside. I beat my fist against it. I cried, begged, screamed. No one answered. Behind me, the hallway stretched longer than it should have. Doors kept appearing where there were none. The lighting dimmed. I turned slowly. Dr. Hadley stood there, grinning. You're adjusting quickly, he said. Let me go. I sobbed. He nodded thoughtfully. That's part of it. The cycle. Every nurse says the same thing on their second night. What cycle? He stepped closer. The walls around us pulsed. There is no leaving, Lucy. You're not an employee anymore. You're part of the hospital now. He held out his hand, and on his palm my ID badge, covered in blood. I remember collapsing. I remember feeling the floor vanish beneath me, like falling into a drain. I saw flashes, other nurses screaming, scratching at walls, hanging by for lines like puppets. The red exit signs blinked with something behind them. Faces, dozens of them, staring out. When I woke up again, I was in the break room. My uniform was clean, my badge clipped. The time? 6:45 p.m. Another clipboard. Nurse Lucy C. Shift start, 7 p.m. Location, floor 9. Special instructions. Room 918 is active tonight. Do not respond to any codes between 3 o'clock and 3:33 a.m. A new list of rules was clipped beneath it. Fresh ink. New blood. The third night, I didn't wake up in the break room. I woke up mid-stride, walking down the corridor of the 9th floor. My body moved on its own, like I'd been sleepwalking for hours. I was carrying a syringe, half full. The label had been scratched off. I froze under a blinking ceiling light as a sharp chill clawed its way down my spine. The air around me buzzed faintly, like a field of static between the living and the dead. I didn't remember dressing. I didn't remember walking. I didn't even remember closing my eyes the last time. That meant I was beginning to merge with Meridian. And if I didn't do something soon, I'd forget who I was altogether. On the nurse's station desk, a fresh clipboard awaited me. The paper was damp this time, as if it had been plucked from water or blood. My name was written in slanted handwriting that didn't look familiar anymore. Nurse Lucy C. Shift, July 13th, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Special focus, room 906. Patient returns tonight. Notes: code black is expected. Do not attempt CPR if instructed to do so after 3 a.m. Underneath, the new set of rules. Updated rules. Night 3. 1. If you see a patient wheeling themselves backward, do not stop them. Close every door they pass. 2. Room 906 contains a returned patient. Do not ask where they went. 3. At 12:34 a.m., turn all the hallway clocks to 12 o'clock. Failure to do so will reset time incorrectly. 4. If you hear someone whispering your left ear, respond with, "I am not your nurse." Do not answer any questions. 5. The morgue elevator will arrive at 3:16 a.m. Do not let it open. Use the emergency brake. By now, I didn't question why the rules existed. I only questioned who made them. Each night, they were more detailed, more tailored. It was like someone, or something, was monitoring me. Not to help, but to test me. I walked past room 906 once before the shift officially started. It looked normal, but the chart taped to the door was blank. That's the only time I've ever seen that. No name, no medications, no diagnosis. At exactly 7 p.m., the overhead speakers clicked on. "Welcome back, Nurse Lucy." No music, no background noise, just my name. It's like a threat. I spent the first hour trying to stay grounded. I repeated my full name under my breath. The street I grew up on. My mother's voice. My old bedroom walls. All the small, human things that Meridian seemed to be peeling from me. By 9 p.m., the air grew colder. The floor creaked like joints cracking under invisible pressure. Then I saw him, the backward patient. He rolled slowly in a wheelchair, feet dragging in reverse, hospital gown soaked and clinging to his bones. His face was turned toward the ceiling, but his eyes were open, watching me from an upside-down angle. The wheelchair moved without his hands on the wheels. I obeyed the rule. I didn't stop him. I closed every door he passed. When he reached the final hallway, he vanished into the dark. Just blinked out. Gone. That's when I noticed something worse. Every door I had closed was now open again. Room 900 SAXS door was now ajar. Light spilled out, and I swear I heard chewing. I pushed it open gently. Inside was a man, early 40s, eyes wild, arms covered in surgical scars. He was sitting up straight in bed, no restraints. His forehead dripped slowly, but I noticed it wasn't connected to him. He was pretending to be hooked up, faking stillness. He looked at me. "You weren't here last time," he whispered. "I stay by the door. You're patient 906. "I was," he said. "Then I died. But I came back. They brought me back wrong." He pointed toward the ceiling. "Something's living in the vents. It watches me sleep. It can't crawl through metal, but it slips through light." I looked up. A square ventilation grate rattled above him. Behind it, I saw movement, fluid and coiling, like intestines learning to slither. I slammed the door and ran. At 12:34 a.m., I began turning the hallway clocks to 12 o'clock. The first two went fine, but when I reached the third, near room 918, the second hand fought me. It wouldn't stop ticking. No matter how hard I turned the dial, the time kept jumping back to 12:32, then 12:33, like it was resisting. Then I noticed my reflection in the clock glass had stopped mimicking me. It tilted its head, smiled. The same bloody eyes from the mirror 2 nights ago. I dropped the clock. It shattered. Time stopped. Every light on the floor blinked out, except the emergency exit sign. I was stuck in a stuttering loop of midnight, until I said it out loud. "I'm not your nurse." The whisper in my left ear screamed in response and fled. The clocks reset. At 2:46 a.m., a code blue was called in room 932. Against my better judgment, I responded. That's a normal code, right? Not like code black. Inside, an elderly woman lay unresponsive. Monitors were flatlining. I jumped into motion, adrenaline overriding fear. I began CPR. On the third compression, she opened her eyes and grabbed my wrists. "You were warned," she hissed. The room melted away. Walls turned to tar. Lights liquefying. Machines warping into coils and tendrils. I was no longer in room 932. I was inside the hospital's memory. I saw flashes, years of trapped souls, nurses shivering in broom closets, doctors replacing their faces in mirrors, patients repeating the same sentence for decades. The building swallowed them, digested them, used their fear like blood. At the heart of it was something rooted in the architecture. A being, not quite a god, not quite a ghost, but it had a name, Norah Greaves. And I had thought it. Even worse, I had understood it. I woke up to the sound of the morgue elevator arriving. 3:16 a.m. I ran down the corridor, bare feet slapping the tile. I must have lost my shoes in the memory hallucination. The elevator was opening. I could hear the rattle of chains inside. The smell of decay hit me like a slap. I found the emergency brake panel and yanked it down. The elevator screamed. A mechanical shriek, as if I had just broken something alive. Inside, I glimpsed shadows shifting, hundreds of them. Hands reaching, mouths gasping. One pair of eyes locked onto me as the doors slid back shut. "You'll ride with us soon, Lucy," it said in Dr. Hadley's voice. At 5:04 a.m., the hallway lights dimmed in pulses. The floor tiles rippled like disturbed water. I could feel the hospital getting restless, like it knew I had resisted longer than others. I went to room 906 one last time. The man was gone, his bed empty, but words had been carved into the walls, ragged, frantic letters written in blood and fingernail. "Don't let her remember." Behind me, a mirror slid from the ceiling. My reflection stepped out of it. She smiled. "You're me now." That was always the plan. At 6:59 a.m., everything snapped back. Lights normal. Hallway straight. The sun rose where it should. And I was back in a break room, my uniform neat. Clipboard waiting. Only this time, there were 2 clipboards. One for Lucy C. to me, and one for Nurse LC, labeled Mirror Ward, Sublevel 1. The photo on the badge wasn't mine. It was her. My reflection. I made a mistake. I read the second clipboard. The one labeled Nurse LC, Mirror Ward, Sublevel 1. The moment I touched it, I felt the weight of something invisible clamp down on me. Like I'd opened a door I wasn't supposed to know existed. My fingers trembled. My breath caught, and the air around me, once filled with the faint hum of fluorescence and distant patient monitors, went utterly, inhumanly still. That's when I noticed there were no lights on in the break room, no overhead bus, no clock ticking. The sun hadn't risen outside the window, because there was no window anymore, only a mirror, and my reflection wasn't copying me anymore. She stepped through the glass like water. Her eyes were sunken, mouth just a little too wide, like someone had tried to stretch her into a version of me that didn't quite fit. Her scrubs were crisp. Her badge gleamed. Nurse LC. Her clipboard was clean, unlike mine, which always came smudged with blood or something worse. She smiled. "You've completed phase 3, she said in my voice. "You're ready for the other side now." I backed away, but the break room door was gone. There was only the mirror. And her. "Where are we?" I whispered. She pointed toward the floor. Sublevel 1. The clipboard she brought had a fresh list of rules. They were different, colder, like they weren't warnings anymore, but instructions. Rules. Mirror ward, sublevel 1. 1. You're no longer Lucy. Do not respond to that name. 2. Mirrors are doorways. They open both ways now. Be careful which version of you answers. 3. Patients in this ward are not alive, but they remember life. Do not let them convince you otherwise. 4. You may encounter staff who look like people you knew. They are not real, but they are persuasive. 5. You must finish your shift by sunrise, or the mirror ward will assign you a permanent post. My pulse thundered in my ears. I glanced at the mirror, just in time to see the break room vanish behind it. I wasn't in the hospital anymore. I was beneath it. Sublevel 1 wasn't part of any floor plan I'd seen. The walls were obsidian black, faintly reflective like dark water, and the air shimmered as if reality here were barely clinging together. There were doors, dozens of them, each shaped slightly off, bent at angles that made me feel dizzy just looking at them. Each door had a number, and each door had my face etched into it. I passed room 1. My reflection had no eyes. Room 2. My reflection grinned with blood-stained teeth. Room 3. My reflection sobbed, silently, fingers clawing at the glass. They were all versions of me. Some broken, some violent, all trapped. Room 7 was open. A voice from inside whispered, "Lucy, come see me." I didn't step in. Not yet. But I looked. Inside was a hospital bed. Someone lay beneath the sheets. It was me. Eyes closed. Breathing shallow. Hooked to a machine labeled "Soul Transfer. Incomplete." I felt nausea coil in my stomach. That thing, that version of me was waiting for something. Maybe waiting for me to finish dying up top. Maybe waiting to replace me completely. I shut the door fast. It whispered from behind the glass, "I'm more real than you." I wandered deeper into the ward, each step heavier than the last. The rules said not to respond to Lucy, but I heard it constantly now. Every shadow, every hallway, every vent whispered my name. Lucy, Luxie, over and over. Sometimes childlike, sometimes robotic, sometimes identical to my own voice, crying. I stuffed my fingers in my ears. It didn't help. They were inside me now. Room 13 was the worst. There was no door, just a broken mirror hanging in a rusted frame. In its reflection, I saw a nurse's station, but it wasn't mine. It was older, dusty. The monitors were broken. There were bodies on the floor. All nurses. Some torn apart. Some smiling with no eyes. One of them looked up from the floor in the reflection and spoke. "You've seen her name now, haven't you?" I knew what she meant. Norah Greaves. The moment the thought formed, every light above me blew out. Glass rained like sharp rain. Something began crawling down the wall behind the mirror. Spindly limbs, too many joints, its skin glistening like oil and water. I ran down a spiral staircase that hadn't been there before. Each step I took echoed wrong, like the sound bounced sideways or backward. At the bottom was a metal corridor. Cold. Industrial. There was a sign. Norah Greaves. Primary Care Suite. Authorized staff only. I should have turned around. I tried to turn around, but my legs moved without permission, the same way they had when I'd woken up mid-stride. The door opened by itself. Inside, the walls were alive. They pulsed like lungs. Wet, meaty walls beating in rhythm with something unnatural. The room stank of copper and mildew and birth. In the center of the room was a surgical table. Strapped to it was Dr. Hadley. His mouth was sewn shut with surgical thread. His eyes darted wildly, pleading. His chest rose and fell too fast, panicked. Standing over him was a woman in a white lab coat, her back to me. Long black hair, holding a scalpel. She turned. Her face was blank. Not blank like emotionless. Blank like missing. No features. No eyes. No mouth. No nose. Just smooth skin stretched across bone like a human-shaped canvas. But when she spoke, I heard her voice inside my skull. You were not supposed to know my name. Norah Greaves. She didn't move. Just stared at me with that faceless head, her voice sliding into every crevice of my brain. I was the first to enter the mirror. I was the first to serve the hospital after death. I'm not the illness. I am the cure. I tried to speak, but my jaw wouldn't open. My tongue had frozen. I will hollow you out, she whispered. You will walk forever in the reflection of your own life. You will serve until no one remembers you existed at all. Then the scalpel flew from her hand, without her touching it, straight toward my face. I screamed and woke up on the 9th floor, back in the hallway, back where it had all started. Was it morning? Number 3:32 a.m., right at the edge of the code black window. Every light in the hallway flickered blood red. A final rule had been scribbled onto my arm in black marker. If you survive the mirror ward, you must choose which self returns. My reflection appeared in the hallway window, but there were two of me now. One stepped into the light, smiling, badge gleaming, perfect posture. Nurse Elsie. The other crawled from the darkness, bleeding, gasping, wild-eyed. Me. I looked down at my hands. Which one was I? I collapsed to my knees. The hallway spun. Every wall screamed my name. From the vents above, Nora's voice purred. Choose. And then, the doors on the floor all unlocked at once. All the rooms, all the patients. Every door swung open, and they began to pour into the hallway. The doors all opened at once. I heard the hiss of hydraulic locks disengaging and the slow, creaking groan of every room giving way like the hospital itself was exhaling. The sound of patients, no, things pretending to be patients, emerging into the hallway was like a slither of wet fabric over tile. I couldn't move, because right in front of me stood myself. Two versions. One clean and composed, flawless scrubs, straight-backed, a smile too wide for a real face. Her ID badge read, Nurse Elsie. She looked just like me if I'd never fought back, if I had surrendered to the hospital completely. The other, ragged, shaking, her face a mask of exhaustion and blood. Hair tangled, arms bruised, but her eyes were real. Terrified and alive. One of us had to stay. One of us had to leave. Behind us, the patients crawled, shuffled, or limped into the corridor. Some moved like puppets without strings. Others jerked with movements that didn't belong in this world. Their eyes glowed faintly in the emergency red lighting. Some of them dragged limbs. Some of them dragged others. Room 943's occupant, if you could call it that, slithered through the door on slick limbs, its shape fluctuating between female, larval, and impossible. It emitted a high-pitched hum, the same sound I'd heard my first night. The clean version of me, Elsie, held out her arms to them like a conductor addressing an orchestra. "They are ready for the shift change," she whispered. "It's time to choose." My knees buckled as the hallway seemed to stretch in both directions. The hospital was changing again, shifting, folding over itself like a paper model. The patients didn't speak. They just stared at me, all of them, watching, waiting. My reflection, Elsie, stepped closer. "Only one of us can leave this floor, Lucy." I flinched. She said my name. "You're not supposed to call me that." She smiled. "Oh, but I am you now." She reached in her pocket and pulled out a scalpel. I didn't remember putting it there, but I felt the familiar weight. My hand instinctively moved to my own pocket and found an identical blade waiting. This was the final test. The hospital wanted blood. The lights above pulsed like a heartbeat. Every time they blinked, the corridor changed, slightly at first, then violently. One moment, it was pristine. The next, it was charred, burned out, walls warped by fire. Then it was filled with water, ankle deep, flickering with reflections that didn't match the real world. The patients circled around us like predators at a ritual. No one spoke. Elsie stepped forward and slashed her own palm with the scalpel. Black ichor poured out, not blood. Thicker, slower. It steamed where it hit the floor. She held her hand out toward me. "Finish the transition. Complete the mirror." I did what I hadn't done since the first night. I ran, down the hall, through the stuttering floors. I dodged hands reaching from gurneys, ignored the blood-red lights screaming overhead, ducked past Dr. Hadley, who stood like a statue whispering, "No more day shift, no more daylight." The stairwell door was open. For once, I descended, flight after flight. But something was wrong. I kept passing floor 9. Every flight, every door said 9th floor oncology. I was trapped in a loop. On the 7th pass, the stairs were gone. Just wall, painted on it in black. "You can't leave until you kill who you used to be." I slammed my fists against the wall, screamed until my voice broke. Then I heard her behind me. Bare feet, slow steps. "Elsie." She didn't run. She didn't need to. "You're stalling," she said softly. "But you've always known what this is." I turned. "Meridian isn't just haunted," I said. "It's alive. It's feeding off the people who work here." She smiled. "You didn't figure that out." I did. Remember. Her eyes flickered just once. Inside them, I saw hundreds of nurses, all wearing my face. They all screamed at once. I lunged. The scalpel cut deep. I didn't even remember lifting it, but it was in my hand, and it found her shoulder. She didn't bleed. She shattered, like glass. Her body cracked into pieces, every shard reflecting a different version of me. Laughing, crying, rotting, glowing. Then the hallway split open down the middle. Reality itself unzipped with a blinding flash. I was pulled into the mirror. This time, the mirror ward was different. There were no doors, just one giant room, filled with hospital beds, each one holding me. Some versions screamed in their sleep. Some twitched violently. Some lay perfectly still. At the far end of the ward stood a window. Behind it, daylight. Real light. Morning. I ran toward it, lungs burning. The closer I got, the fewer beds remained. The air thinned. The floor cracked with each step. Behind me, something chased. I didn't look. I knew it was Norah Greaves. She had no body anymore. She was in the walls, and the light in me. Her voice clawed at my mind. You cannot leave without forgetting. One truth must be sacrificed. I reached the glass and screamed, "Let me out." A voice answered behind the window. A nurse. A real one. Blurry. She wore my badge, but she looked confused. She mouthed something I could barely hear. "Are you the original?" I hesitated. I didn't know. I didn't remember. Behind me, Norah roared in 1,000 voices. The nurse lifted a hammer from the other side, and she shattered the glass. I was pulled forward like being yanked through birth. White light seared my eyes. And then, I was in a hospital bed, monitors beeping, and for my arm, daylight streaming through the window. A real nurse leaned over me, startled. She's awake. Footsteps. Voices. Then silence. A man entered the room in a clean lab coat. "Lucy," he said, smiling. "You had a fall. Some kind of seizure. Do you remember anything?" I blinked. My mouth was dry. I tried to speak, but the words weren't mine. "What's my name again?" He frowned, gently tapping his clipboard. "Nurse Lucy C. You've been with us 2 weeks." I looked at his badge. "Dr. Hadley." I tried to sit up. My reflection in the room's mirror smiled at me before I did. My chest tightened. Outside, a patient in a wheelchair wheeled backward down the hallway. The vending machine beeped. A humming note echoed faintly from the vents. And taped to my bedside tray was a new list of rules. Meridian Hospital, night shift orientation. You've been accepted into permanent rotation. All prior memories are considered non-essential. Do not speak your name out loud. You may experience hallucinations. This is normal. If you see yourself in the mirror, smile and nod. You've made it. End. Final note to viewers. She survived. Or did she? What version of Lucy woke up? What happened to the others? And will you be able to follow the rules if you ever find yourself at Meridian Hospital? Let us know what you think in the comments. And remember, don't answer code black.